So let's just take a moment to define what masking is and how we might see it in children and adults.
Yeah, so masking is when an autistic person or anyone with a neurodiversity, because it's not just specific to autism, puts on a different persona or kind of mimics others around them activities and behaviours in order to mask their autistic traits. For example, an autistic person might feel really uncomfortable with giving eye contact, but through social experiences have learned that actually giving eye contact is more socially acceptable and people like that. So they could force themselves to give eye contact in a situation where they feel uncomfortable to try to fit in more. And the hope for those who mask is to connect with others and to not stand out, and to fit in with their peers, and to potentially seem less autistic if they're trying to hide their difficulties and challenges around others, so that they can feel more socially accepted.
Right, and I know at least it's also considered camouflaging sometimes, but it's basically trying to make it so you see more neurotypical.
Yes.
Right? You're trying to draw less attention to the uniqueness that makes you who you are as a person and try and blend in with that norm. And this can be very taxing. Can you give a couple more examples of how or why someone might try and mask, or a behavior that they're trying to mask?
Yeah, so for example, a lot of our young girls really struggle with social communication and interaction. And this can be particularly challenging while they're at school. So if they are expected to go onto the playground or at lunchtime, so it's really unstructured times, if they are out with their peers, they could be really struggling to interact. So you might get an autistic child who might struggle to interact with someone, so they might go and stand next to someone, so they look as if they're playing, but actually they're not really engaging in that two-way or that three-way conversation or interaction. They're just kind of playing alongside them instead of with them. And that can be really challenging for teachers or for support staff to pick up. And then you might get someone who might talk quite a lot. So on the surface, they may give a really superficial level of communication or interaction, but it really is superficial. And actually underneath that, maybe they are lacking the understanding of the words that they are saying, or they're lacking that interpretation of communication and that ability to have a two-way conversation. But through masking and through mimicking other peers, they have learned how to cope better and how to hide their neurodiversity in a setting.
Right, and something that I've experienced with individuals is they'll often try and say what they think you want them to be saying, and not that they're intentionally lying, but they're like, okay, I think this is what you want me to say, so I'm going to say it because I think you're going to like that answer better than how I truly feel. And this is that we even see in society, like when you say, oh, how are you? Instead of saying, oh, you know what, I've had a horrible day, I just want to go home, curl up, like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, and we get that a lot with our autistic young people, especially because they've got a lot of special interests, but sometimes they're very aware that other people don't like their interests as much as them. So they'll often, an autistic adult may often ask you about the weather. They're not bothered about the weather, but they know that that is a socially acceptable conversation to have with someone, and they saw that, they've witnessed it, and then they are now mimicking it because they're wanting to social mask. So they know to ask those questions to try to start that conversation, and sometimes they can be very good at starting the conversation or saying that first question, but then afterwards they're not really sure what to say because they haven't witnessed that part of the conversation yet, so they're not sure how to keep it going because they do lack those social communication interaction skills. But they can make comments, they can be agreeable, and they can laugh at the right time when they should in jokes and things like that. So they come across as coping really well in a situation, when actually it can be quite taxing to them, and it can be really challenging for them to mask in society.